Amen. And please join me for everything that has been so incredibly special thus far about this morning and everything that has been so special about this 150th anniversary celebration to Sister Azzy Conley and to all those on the committee. Please join me in giving them a well-deserved round of applause. Our protocol has been established, and the task at hand for me now is to present God's chosen preacher for this special occasion. I encourage you to take a look at page 10 in your worship guide. You will see a biographical sketch of our preacher. He is here to take us to the mountaintop. He is here as a capstone of an experience that has lasted 150 days. As they say on ESPN on Sundays, let's rewind the videotape. August the 4th, things began with the Reverend Roderick Beelan, the publisher of the AME Church. He came and preached a blessing right out of heaven, and if you recall, that brother sang us all incredibly happy. Things continued on August the 9th with the youth ministry leading a concert with Pastor John P. Key. The old saying is, there's nothing wrong with doing well while you're doing good. We did good for a whole bunch of people by collecting shoes for students in need. On August the 25th, we had a phenomenal experience, the Black Church at its best in talking about social justice, where we welcome U.S. Senator Kamala Harris and our lovely sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated on the AKA International Day of Prayer. In September, you will recall, we raised $5,000 for our first hashtag NCCU Sunday as we welcome Chancellor Johnson Akinley and a whole bunch of folks from the Eagle Nation. God truly was in the house. In October, our first communion Sunday of the month, our communion Sunday of the month, was the first time I was blessed as this church's pastor to welcome our presiding bishop. The Right Reverend James Levert Davis came and preached a blessing right out of heaven as he asked the question, what happens when the wine runs dry? Lord, did that man preach on that day. We also had our first baptisms, and it was a very special space for me to baptize, especially Sister Lindsay, who gave her life to Christ. Things have continued with the Reverend Dubai Sababu Thomas preaching us happy on our Family and Friends Day. Last week, we had a phenomenal Social Justice Sunday experience with Andrew Young and with the Links. And just last night, we had a red carpet affair that was absolutely second to none. Now today, God's preacher is here to take us to the mountaintop as we end 150 days for 150 years. The Right Reverend Jeffrey N. Leath, the 128th elected and consecrated bishop of the church. Let me take a moment to share with you that in a very proverbial and figurative sense, I looked up to him and he provided inspiration before I had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know him. I was blessed to attend United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio, where I earned my Master of Divinity. It is the same place where our presiding elder and the bishop earned their Doctor of Ministry degrees. There is a framed picture on the wall in the seminary of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor, the inaugural class of his doctoral fellows. Some of the most distinguished Christian leaders in ecumenical communions throughout the world were a part of that class. I wanted to know who in the picture was AME. I found out that one in the picture was the pastor of Mother Bethel AME Church. He is our preacher. Now, let me say something about Mother Bethel. Sister Carolyn, I commend you and all of those who worked so hard on that beautiful souvenir journal that we received last night. Was that thing out of sight or what, right? When you turn and when you thumb through that journal, when you see the history portion of it, it begins with 1787 and a story of liberation and resistance that occurred at the intersection of 6th and Lombard Streets in Philadelphia that we now know as Mother Bethel AME Church. You ask AME ministers, you ask AME folks all around the world, well, what is it that drew you to the church? The first answer they always say, boy, the history. I want you to think for a moment, what type of pastor do you send to serve as the face person, as the guardian of a denomination's history? And then think, what bishop sends that pastor there? The person sent as Mother Bethel's 51st pastor is someone who was well prepared. A son of the parsonage, he accepted the calling in his own right. And the old saying is that a calling to preach is also a calling to prepare. So he was sent as a proud graduate of Yale College. In fact, when he was an undergraduate at Yale, the presiding elder was in seminary at Yale. They go back a mighty long way. He is somebody who went on after accepting the calling to attend Yale Divinity School, and he was a distinguished pastor at Bethel AME Church in Wilmington, Delaware. The person who saw something in him, the person who proverbially put his hand on him and elevated him to send him to Mother Bethel, let me see if I can put this in perspective. When Bishop Davis was here and we did our baptisms, I shared with you that this baptismal font means so very much to me because it came from the old St. Joseph Church, the old edifice, and I shared it special because no doubt Bishop Cousin, over the course of his ministry here, did a whole lot of baptisms from this same baptismal font. You will recall me sharing that when Bishop Cousin was elected from this church to become a bishop in our Zion, he was assigned to the 9th Episcopal District where he put his hand on then Reverend Davis, who went on to become the 123rd elected and consecrated bishop of the church. That same bishop, after leaving the 9th District, served in the 11th District and then went to the 1st Episcopal District. He made several appointments, but you only get one appointment to Mother Bethel. The person he assigned to serve Mother Bethel AME Church went on to become the 128th elected and consecrated bishop, and he is here this morning as our preacher. Amen. He was elected from Mother Bethel in 2008, and he served with distinction following, of all ironies, Bishop Davis being assigned to the 19th Episcopal District, the Republic of South Africa. After leaving South Africa, he was assigned to the 13th Episcopal District, where he has served with efficiency and integrity, raising ministry to new heights in the states of Kentucky and Tennessee. I am personally delighted to have him here. I am excited by the fact that we share a friendship. I'm excited that we share a fraternal bond in Alpha Phi Alpha. But I am deeply humbled that he has been a mentor to me for years. I'm going to ask you now, as we prepare the choir to sing the Song of Zion, please, if you will join me by standing to your feet and receiving the 128th elected and consecrated bishop of the church, the Right Reverend Jeffrey N. Leath.
Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for the Lord is good. The Lord's mercies endure forever. Pastor J. Augustine and Sister Augustine, my schoolmate and friend of many years, Presiding Elder Pridgeon and Sister Pridgeon, the Reverend clergy, distinguished visitors and friends, elected officials, and to our brothers from Omega Psi Phi on your Founders Day, we greet you with love and appreciation. To the members of St. Joseph Church on this, your 150th anniversary, we offer words of congratulations and encouragement. And my brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha, the oldest fraternity, and Reverend Augustine tells me it's the best, so I take his word for it. We say thank you. In fact, I wanted to show the presentation. So often we see bags and don't know what's in them, and so... If you're sitting at the back, there's a clock here in this plaque, but it's not set and the battery is not activated, so I will assure you I won't look at this one. We do appreciate the opportunity to come and share in this auspicious occasion. We are grateful to your pastor for the invitation and Bishop Davis in absentia for his consent, support, and prayers as we stand on this day. We want to acknowledge with appreciation the hospitality that has been received. Had a wonderful time on last evening, and we have just enjoyed being here in Durham and sharing with you as you celebrate and come to the end of your 150-day celebration of the 150th year of St. Joseph Church. My wife joins me in expressing greetings to each of you, and we look forward to coming back and sharing and being with you at another time. I am a lectionary preacher, and so today I know a lot of people don't believe in preaching the lectionary. I don't know why that is. That for many, many years, the lectionary has not let me down. And I might say more about that later, but if I forget, it's all right. Today, the gospel reading from the lectionary comes to us from the gospel recorded by Luke. There in the 21st chapter, it's a long passage, so I'm not going to read it. I'll trust you to read it at your convenience. It begins, though, with really a question about how will we know when the end of time has arrived? And the pericope ends with the 19th verse, Luke 21:19. In your patience possess ye your souls. More modern translation would say, by your endurance, you will gain your souls. By your endurance, you will gain your souls. Now, I'm not one of these new preachers who's going to ask you to tell your neighbor a whole lot of stuff, so just relax. I'll let you rest up for next Sunday. I would like to use the subject, though, today. Live now. Live now. A question was posed of Jesus, how will we know when the end of time is going to be? And Jesus responds by letting them know, well, you're going to find a lot of things are going to happen before the end of time. There's some things that might happen when it's close, but you keep looking for these signs about the end of time. Maybe that's not the question you should be asking. Jesus foretold some 40 years before it happened in this very same passage, said the temple, as you have seen it adorned, it will not remain. In fact, one stone won't be left standing on another stone. The temple itself is going to be destroyed, but even then, that's not the end of time. It's not that there will be things, the earth will quake, there will be wars and rumors of wars, and all of those things are going to let you know of how things are unfolding, but still not quite the end of time. Sometimes we look back on our past, and because of our present, we are looking for that better future. But I think if you took a moment to hear the testimony of some of those who are 90 and 100 plus, life is not a steady progression. One decade does not automatically lead to a better next decade. Life really is more like the stock market. It has its ups and its downs. And for those who have done well in this congregation in the stock market, you realize that if you have a knee-jerk reaction to the ups or the downs, you will not do well in the long run.
Say it, sir.
To do well with investing requires patience. In fact, a stockbroker might just paraphrase the text and say, by your patience you will gain dividends. Life has ups and downs built into it. And if you're not careful, you'll waste away your life looking for the brighter day ahead and not appreciating the bright day in which you're living. If you are not careful, you will not gain the fullest benefit of times of hardship and difficulty and trial. Those are things that help you and me build character and to become the better person that God would have us to be. But if all we do is cry and complain about how miserable we are and how bad things are, you miss the point. That the challenge of Jesus is not to be so heaven fixed that you are no earthly good. The challenge of Jesus is to live right now. This is the day of salvation. This is the day of hope. This is the day of joy and of peace. Not tomorrow, not yesterday. Stop trying to bring the old days back. They aren't as good as you remember them.
Say it, sir.
Stop trying to rush the future because you don't know what's in the path before you. There may be more tears and hardship that you never anticipated. And if you don't believe it, think about what the day before yesterday was like when you consider the tears and the struggles of today. And so we are told by Jesus, I think, in this passage, you have to live for now. You can't just keep worrying about when the end of time is coming. Don't worry about when you're going to die. Don't waste your life worrying about dying. Don't waste your time away worrying about what kinds of things are going to happen to you between now and then. He says, let me tell you the kinds of things that are going to happen to you. He says, if you really love me and if you're going to follow my way for my sake, guess what's going to happen? Your family will forsake you. You'll find yourself put in the midst of isolation. You'll be craving love, and you won't have the love of mother, father, brother, sister, child. No, because for my sake, you may find yourself, no matter how thick you think blood may be, sometimes it's not as good as water. Even your family know how to isolate you. Not only that, but you think that you have some friends, but trust me, you'll find some times in life when your friends won't have anything to do with you. Maybe it's a good thing not to have anything to do with some of your friends, especially those who don't think voting is important, those who vote for the wrong people, and those who think Mr. Charlie is going to take care of them like Mr. Charlie always has.
All right.
What? No family? No friends? Oh, no, it'll get worse. You may find yourself beaten up. You may find yourself in a predicament that you never expected to find yourself. So many of us are struggling hard. We're near maybe the end of what we think is our earthly life, and we want to make sure that we have the endowment set up for the next generation. But do you know there are things in the next generation that you don't see? And just like some of us are a paycheck away from being homeless, the fact is no matter how well you set up your children and your grandchildren, there's no guarantee that they're going to be in the right place with the right resources at the right time, because you don't know what they're going to need. If 200 years ago you invested in horses so that you make sure your great-grandchildren get around, you'd be in trouble because no place for the horse to run anymore. And so it comes down to the fact that the only thing that you can do is live for now. Live for God right now. Stop worrying about how great you or St. Joseph or your fraternity or sorority used to be. Stop worrying about the past and live for right now. Because it is in the now that we are supposed to be the people of integrity. It's in the now that we are supposed to represent what God has called us to be. It is in the now that we should be enjoying the benefits of righteousness. It is in the now. It's not in the title. It's not in the brand. That's what's wrong right now in our nation. People are riding the horse of a brand, riding the horse of a sense of an ideology that once was. But the folks who brought about a moral majority are some of the most immoral people in the nation right now.
All right.
Stop being fooled by people who say, God bless you, but they take money out of the mouths of the poor. Stop worrying about those folks and believing those folks who say, in the state where I'm living right now, Tennessee is supposed to be one of the 3 most godly states in the nation, with one of the meanest legislatures you can find any place in the world.
All right.
Yeah, I heard that too. But I got to get out of here. Live now. And so if we are to live now, then what will happen is we will gain, if we live with patience, our souls. We'll stop being like zombies. Creatures who walk, who put on fancy outfits, who say the right things and get degrees and hang them on our wall, and sometimes don't know as much to be able to read the degree that's on the wall. We stop becoming so concerned about status. Do you know it's not important whether or not somebody calls you doctor or reverend or bishop? What is more important is that somebody recognize that your humanity. When St. Joseph was founded 150 years ago, the presumption by so many was, this is an institution started by a creature that was equivalent to cows and horses that had deeds attached to them, that were bought and traded, sold, and did not recognize the humanity. Some folks got to the point where they built up money and bought property and raised families. But the one thing that they wanted more than anything else was not to be able to say, look how much money I have, but how much money I have they thought was going to show somebody that they were a human being. That they had a brain, that they had creativity, that they had innovation, that they could be anything just like anybody else could be. And then you come now 150 years later, and the same mentality that we don't have humanity is in operation. Until you recognize your humanity. Until you recognize that unlike the horse or the cow, you have a soul. You've not been saved. There is no quality to your life no matter how many times you've stayed at the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons or where you buy your clothes. And so, by your endurance, you will gain your souls. And so if we are to live with patience, then we must find ourselves as the Church of St. Joseph in the next 150 years, unless Jesus comes back sooner. Recognizing what the church is supposed to be for us and what we're supposed to be in the church. And the first thing is the church should be that place and that community where we affirm the faithfulness and power of God as it has been. Joining the testimony of what has been with confidence in what will be the results brings comfort in the now. It's not so much that I worship the past. It's not so much that you should worship the past, but rather you need to be regularly in the community where the past is remembered with anticipation and comfort for what the future has in store. It's not that I know the future, but here's what I know. God, who has been our help in ages past, is our hope for years to come. I come to affirm what goodness God has been, not just some abstract, but in the land of the living. God was good not only as the children of Israel left Egypt and went to the promised land, but God was good when St. Joseph gathered in a log cabin with 6 members. God was good as God was gathering people and prospering the people. And though there have been some ups and there have been some downs, there always was a bright side somewhere. Indeed, I know trouble doesn't last always, because for 150 years, it has not lasted always. Not only do we affirm the history and the testimony of the past, but in this place, it ought to be a place where we surrender control, but not participation in life. So many of us, we are ruining our lives because we think we can run it. I'm so glad God doesn't answer some of our prayers, because some of the things we ask God to do would mess us up real bad. There's a difference between sitting down and doing nothing. That's not patience. One commentator describes patience as submissive waiting. Patience is about when you yield of yourself as you are waiting to see how God is going to work things out. It doesn't mean that you stay home and think that food's going to show up on your table. No, you need to go to work, even if that just means going to the computer in the next room. It doesn't mean that you wait for government to give you everything. No, but it also means you can't sit home and fail to protest when government is not evening the playing field and instead giving advantages to those who would oppress you rather than those who would give you an abundant life. It's about saying to myself, I don't know what it ought to be, but I know this, if I just follow the direction of the Holy Spirit. And so Jesus tells the folks here in this chapter, he says, don't worry when they call you before the councils what you're going to say. Just go and stand up and I'll give you the words. Don't worry about whether or not they're going to arrest you today. Just go on to the Capitol and stand up. And if they ask you why you're there, say, I'm here because God sent me. God sent me to declare a certain state of morality. God sent me here to declare a state of power, not resident in government, but in the hands of the Almighty God. I'm a 3-point preacher, so I'm about finished now. Not only do we affirm the faithfulness of God and God's power, not only do we surrender control without surrendering participation, but also we recognize that freedom is not just in our future, but it must be in our present. And we recognize that our lives are not just about a chronological future, but in a kairos event that is beyond this day. We live in chronos, a place where there are timelines, where this preacher followed that preacher, and that preacher followed another preacher, and this lay person did this, and then that lay person did that, and then we did this in the community, and then we did that in the community. That's chronos.
But you know, freedom doesn't follow chronos like that. Because before St. Joseph was started in a log cabin, and there were those who came to St. Joseph who knew that God had made them of the same blood that God had made everybody else in the world. And they knew that they were worth something, no matter what the other folks may tell them. They knew they could be somebody because they had somebodyness already in their souls. They knew Lincoln could sign the paper, but God sets the captives free. They knew that in this world things may be up and down, but God is control of the world. They knew Chronos is going to run out one day, but Kairos is on the way. In God's time, God will set things straight. In God's time, God will show us what the fullness of life really is. We are often tossed and driven on the restless sea of time, somber skies and howling tempests, off the sea of bright sunshine, in that land of perfect day. When the mists have rolled away, we'll understand it better. By and by, when the morning comes, by and by, when the lion and the lamb lie down together, by and by, when the tears will be wiped from our eyes. Oh, live now.